The movie begins with a woman named Funda standing at a party. The party is hosted by her husband, Keenan, in celebration of the 40th anniversary of the publishing house founded by his father, which he inherited after his father's passing. During the party, Keenan speaks to the guests about his relationship with the publishing house. He explains that when his father established the company, he was still young and never imagined that one day he would be responsible for running it. He adds that he always feared that if he took over the management, he would turn the successful publishing house into a failing one, but no one was ever aware of his concerns. Keenan continues by saying that after his father's death, his personality changed completely, and he discovered a love for reading and literature within himself. Because of this, he was able to easily select the books that would be published by the company, which led to his credibility rising among other publishers. Readers trusted his selections and realized that the books he published would be valuable to them. At the end of his speech, Keenan thanks his wife, Funda, in front of all the guests, calling her a loyal and devoted woman. He acknowledges that she has been by his side for 10 years since their marriage, showering him with love, care, and affection. Later, Keenan meets with his friend Tanner, a writer of stories and novels, and advises him to slightly change his writing style. He tells Tanner that he should create compelling characters who could serve as the protagonists of his future novels and choose thrilling stories that would capture readers' attention, ultimately increasing book sales. Tanner accepts this advice and promises to incorporate these changes in his upcoming novel. Later, when Funda returns home, she finds an old manuscript of a book titled Ashes. This book had been sent to her husband, Keenan, long ago, but he had never published it. Determined to uncover the mystery behind the book, Funda opens the manuscript and starts reading. She quickly becomes engrossed in the story, which revolves around a love affair between a girl and a man named Mim. The protagonist of the story describes how she loved Mim madly, to the point that her love for him changed her life, despite the fact that Mim lived in a poor neighborhood called Platt. She depicts Mim as a strong-built man with large muscles and tattoos on his hands and neck. Funda carries the book with her everywhere, experiencing the life of the protagonist, someone who always accompanied Mim to a bakery called Musvik in the Platt neighborhood. Funda's excitement compels her to search the internet to find out whether the Musvik bakery in Platt truly exists. When she discovers that such a bakery does indeed exist, she becomes thrilled and calls her friend Lael, who is Tanner's wife, to tell her about the manuscript she found. She asks Lael to accompany her to the neighborhood to see the bakery, and Lael agrees. When they arrive at the bakery, Funda tells her friend that they must have breakfast there to fully immerse themselves in the atmosphere of the story. Lael, surprised by how deeply invested Funda has become in the book, tells her that she is getting too carried away. However, Funda responds that the story is based on reality, and she firmly believes that if they search the Platt neighborhood thoroughly, they might find Mim and even talk to him. That way, Funda can truly live the experience of the book's protagonist. Seeing how determined Funda is, Lael makes an excuse that she has daily responsibilities to attend to and must leave. Funda tells her she can go, but she herself will not leave Platt until she finds the characters from the book. After Lael leaves, Funda opens the book again and continues reading. In the story, the female protagonist mentions that her happiest moments were spent with Mim in a carpentry workshop. Inspired by this, Funda decides to search for Mim among the carpenters of Platt, comparing their features to those described in the book. However, when she fails to find him, she returns to Keenan's publishing house, saying she wants to talk to him. But just in that instant, Keenan's secretary enters and reminds him of an important meeting. Keenan gathers his documents and heads to the meeting, leaving Funda feeling ignored once again. To pass the time, she decides to continue reading the book. As the story progresses, the protagonist recounts that she and Mim shared special moments in a tower that overlooked the entire city. The next day, Funda returns to the Platt neighborhood once more and goes straight to the bakery. There, she encounters a man who bears a striking resemblance to the description of Mim in the book. Filled with curiosity, she follows him and sees him enter a carpentry workshop. In that instant, Funda begins to suspect that this man might be Mim from the story, so she follows him inside the workshop and asks for his name. The man responds that his name is Ollie, but notices Funda's odd behavior and asks what she wants. Initially flustered, Funda quickly comes up with an excuse, explaining that she needs a mirror for her fashion atelier so that customers can see themselves while trying on clothes. Wanting another opportunity to see him, she tells Ollie that she will take the measurements for the mirror and contact him later. As she is about to leave the workshop, she notices a postal worker delivering a package and calling out for Met and Ollie. Funda becomes very happy because the name Metin closely resembles the name of the novel's protagonist, Mim. Because of this, she comes up with an excuse to get his phone number, so she can send him the mirror's measurements. After returning to her atelier, she calls Metin, gives him the dimensions of the mirror, and then returns to reading the novel. As the novel continues, the protagonist states that Mim is the man she wishes to spend the rest of her life with, despite the fact that he is married and has a family. The next day, Metin arrives at Funda's atelier, bringing the mirror she had ordered. Upon entering, he looks for a suitable spot to install it. While he is busy installing the mirror, Funda carefully watches his fingers to see if he is wearing a wedding ring. When she notices that he isn't, she wonders if he might be married, but simply doesn't wear his ring due to his work. After installing the mirror, Metin says that he is done, but Funda, pretending to be dissatisfied, says she thinks the mirror's placement isn't quite right and asks him to move it elsewhere. Metin agrees, but during the process of repositioning it, the mirror breaks and he injures his hand. Funda immediately rushes to help him, bandaging his wound and reassuring him that she will cover the cost of the broken mirror. She then asks Metin to make a new mirror for her and bring it back to the atelier once it is ready. As Funda continues reading the novel, the protagonist describes how she had marked every pillar in a tall tower overlooking the city to preserve her memories with Mim. In the afternoon, Funda goes to pick up her son, AJ, from school. When AJ arrives home, he sees the book on the table, starts playing with it, and ends up coloring and tearing some of the pages. Funda notices and angrily yells at him, warning that if he does it again, she will punish him. In that instant, Keenan, who has been watching the scene, sternly tells Funda that her behavior has changed recently and that she needs to take better care of herself. He asks her if something is wrong, but Funda insists that she is fine and tells him not to worry. The next day, Funda returns to the Platte neighborhood and meets Metin at his carpentry workshop. She tells him she came to ask about the status of the new mirror, but their conversation quickly turns into a friendly discussion. Funda invites him to lunch and Metin accepts. At the restaurant, Funda asks Metin about his personal life, and he tells her that he is single and not involved with anyone. Then, she asks him about a tower near the Platte neighborhood that offers a view of the entire city. However, Metin responds that he doesn't know of any such tower near his workshop or in Platte. This answer surprises Funda because she was convinced that Metin was the same person as the character in the novel, but now she begins to doubt it. Just then, Keenan calls her and asks her to return home immediately. Funda quickly gets into her car and drives back home. When she arrives, Keenan and their friend Lael are waiting for her. Keenan tells her that AJ has been causing trouble at school and that the principal informed him that their son has been using aggression in all of his interactions. Keenan accuses Funda of neglecting AJ's upbringing, saying that she is always preoccupied with other things and doesn't prioritize their child. The following day, Metin arrives at Funda's atelier and tells her that he is ready to show her the tower she had asked about. However, he sets a condition. In return, Funda must tell him how she found out about the tower. Funda hesitates and avoids answering, but she still agrees to go with him to see the tower. On their way, a woman who appears to be distressed watches them closely with a worried expression. Funda notices this and asks Metin if he knows the woman, but Metin denies it, saying he doesn't know her. When they enter the tower, Funda examines every detail with great care, completely immersing herself in the atmosphere of the story. She experiences an exhilarating time with Metin and completely forgets about Keenan. On the rooftop of the tower, Metin asks Funda again how she learned about this place. This time, Funda tells him that she overheard people at the bakery talking about it. However, Metin doesn't believe her and tells her that she is lying because no one but himself knows about the existence of this tower. To divert the conversation, Funda pretends that she saw the tower in a dream and remembers every detail of it, which made her curious enough to visit it in person. Metin, astonished, says that it's very strange, but decides to believe her. In that instant, Funda becomes so lost in the moment with Metin that she doesn't realize how much time has passed. The sky has turned completely dark, and Metin turns on the tower's lights, revealing that he is the one responsible for its lighting. Meanwhile, Kenan is at a business party, waiting for his wife. He calls her several times, but Funda ignores all his calls. When Funda finally returns home, Kenan is waiting for her. He is furious and demands to know why she didn't attend the party, saying that by not showing up, she put him in a very difficult position. In that instant, AJ wakes up and anxiously watches his parents argue. Funda immediately rushes to him, holds him in her arms, and tries to comfort him so he can go back to sleep. The next day, Kenan goes to Funda's atelier and asks her assistant, Seelan, about her whereabouts. Seelan responds that she doesn't know where Funda is. Then Kenan notices the new mirror and asks about it. Seelan explains that Funda had a carpenter named Metin install it and recounts the details of the incident, including how Metin injured himself during the installation and how Funda personally bandaged his wound. At the same time, Funda is standing outside Metin's workshop, watching him talk to the same woman who had previously looked at them with distress in the street. She overhears the woman angrily telling Metin that he pays no attention to her feelings and even walks around with other women in public. Metin, also frustrated, responds that they are not husband and wife, and he has the right to do whatever he wants. However, the woman insists that they are legally married and asks him to at least show some respect for her emotions. Metin, uninterested, disregards her plea and forces her to leave the workshop. In that instant, Funda enters the workshop, furious, and accuses Metin of being a liar and a deceiver. However, Metin remains calm and explains that he never hid the truth from her. He says that he was forced into a legal marriage with that woman because his family was in severe financial distress, and the marriage was a means to receive financial assistance. But he emphasizes that he never loved her and that their marriage only exists on paper. He further explains that the woman refuses to get a divorce, hoping that one day she will win his love. After this conversation, Metin drives Funda home. In that instant, Lael, Funda's close friend, is standing at the door and sees them together. She thinks to herself that stubborn Funda has finally found the hero of her novel and fallen into a romantic relationship with him. Later, Lael talks to Funda and warns her not to get caught up in illusions, as she might end up destroying her marriage. Funda responds that at first, she was only curious about exploring the world of the novel she found at home. But now, she has slowly grown attached to Metin and can no longer get him out of her mind. At the end of their conversation, Funda promises Lael that she will try to distance herself from Metin to preserve her life. After making this decision, Funda gives the novel to Kenan, telling him that she has read it but ultimately found it to be a weak story that isn't worth publishing. Kenan takes the novel and begins reading it himself. The next day, Kenan asks his secretary to find the author of the novel. Some time later, the secretary informs him that the author's name is Rayhan and provides him with her address. Kenan goes to Rayhan's house and asks her about the novel, but Rayhan looks surprised and says she never sent a novel to anyone. When Kenan tells her that the novel was sent from her address, Rayhan explains that her sister, Doigu, who passed away a year ago, used to live with her. Then, she shuts the door in Kenan's face. After this encounter, Rayhan goes to Metin and tells him that a man came to her house asking about Doigu. Metin becomes upset upon hearing this and says that he closed that chapter of his life long ago. He asks Rayhan never to bring it up again. In that instant, Kenan is sitting in his car, watching them from a distance. The next day, Kenan goes to Metin's workshop and tells him that he needs a wooden bookshelf for his house. He gives Metin the measurements and offers to pay him any amount he wants, on the condition that he finishes the work as soon as possible. A few days later, Metin arrives at Kenan's house to install the bookshelf. After completing the work, Kenan invites him to stay for dinner. Metin accepts the invitation and thanks him for his hospitality. Moments later, Funda enters the room and is shocked to see Metin there, but she tries to compose herself and act as if she doesn't know him. Metin also plays along, pretending to meet her for the first time. At the dinner table, Kenan starts talking about his wife, saying that Funda is an intelligent woman who reads books and novels before they are published, and he completely trusts her judgment. He then adds that Funda wanted her life to be like the story of Doigu, but she failed. Hearing this, Metin is taken aback and asks Keenan what he knows about Doigu. In that instant, Keenan delivers his final blow with a calm demeanor, saying that he knows Metin was in love with Doigu but betrayed her by getting involved with her sister, Rayhan. Keenan explains that this betrayal led to a conflict between the two sisters, and in the end, Doigu decided to take her own life. He then adds that all of this was written in the ending of the novel that was sent to his publishing house. He reveals that Doigu herself wrote this novel and even predicted its conclusion. Metin, unable to hide the truth any longer, tells Keenan that he was never in love with Doigu and that it was Doigu who had become obsessively attached to him. He explains that Doigu always tried to separate him from Rayhan and, in her madness, convinced herself that Metin had betrayed her, even though that wasn't the reality. The argument between Keenan and Metin escalates and quickly turns into a physical fight. Meanwhile, Funda sits in the corner, motionless, merely watching the confrontation unfold. In the end, both men fall into the swimming pool. Under the water, Metin pulls out a knife, kills Keenan, and leaves his body floating in the pool. After Keenan's death, the final days of his life and the story of his wife Funda's infidelity become the subject of a novel. Tainu, a famous writer and Keenan's friend, turns this narrative into a new book and announces to his audience that it is an inspiring story based on true events. In the final scene, Tainer's wife, Lael, smiles at him with pride as the story of her friend Funda has now been transformed into a literary masterpiece.